Welcome to Ancient Whisperers, a space where the nights feel quieter, the stories feel older, and time slows down just long enough for us to listen. Tonight, let's travel to a land where generosity was not a virtue. It was a way of life. A land ruled by a king whose name still echoes whenever kindness is spoken. This is the story of Mahabali. So settle in, breathe gently, and let the ancient world unfold. Long ago, when kingdoms were measured not by wealth, but by the hearts of their rulers, there lived a king whose reputation reached farther than his armies ever could. His name was Bali, also known as Mahabali, the Great One. He was the grandson of Prahlada, the devout soul who saw God even in the darkness of Hiranyakashipu's reign. And Bali inherited from him not power, but purity. Even as a young prince, Bali was different. While other children raced chariots and boasted of strength, he sat with the aged ministers asking what made a ruler truly good. No one had a perfect answer. Some said bravery, some said wealth, others said devotion. But Bali quietly believed it was something simpler: the ability to give more than you had and expect nothing back. When he finally became king, the people of his kingdom felt as if the monsoon had returned after a harsh summer. Crops flourished, trade expanded, and peace flowed like a soft wind through the villages. Farmers spoke his name with hope, merchants spoke it with gratitude, even enemies spoke it with respect. And yet, respect often attracts rivals. Far away, in celestial realms, the gods watched Bali's rise with growing unease. They knew he was kind, but he was powerful, too powerful enough that his influence stretched across 3 worlds. The heavens, the earth, and the realms below. His devotion, strength, and generosity were so extraordinary that even the gods feared he might eclipse them one day. But Bali himself, he never once looked upward with ambition. He looked only around, at the people who trusted him. One morning, as soft sunlight filtered through the royal courtyard, Mahabali prepared for a grand ritual, an ancient yaja that required the king to give freely to anyone who asked, without hesitation. For Bali, this was no burden. Giving was as natural to him as breathing. Priests chanted, sacred fires glowed like tiny suns. And as the ritual reached its most sacred moment, a small figure appeared at the edge of the hall. A young Brahmin boy, barefoot, clothed in simple ochre garments, eyes bright, but calm like he carried galaxies behind them. The hall fell silent. The boy walked forward unhurried, as if every step had a purpose. Mahabali rose from his throne and folded his hands. "Welcome, young one," he said with a smile. "What blessing can I offer you?" The boy looked up and spoke gently. "I ask for only 3 paces of land." The ministers exchanged surprised glances. 3 steps. A king as grand as Bali, being asked for something so small. But Bali, true to his nature, nodded immediately. "If 3 steps is all you desire, 3 steps you shall receive." And the moment he spoke those words, the hall trembled, the boy began to change. His small frame expanded like a growing horizon. His simple garment unfurled into a radiance brighter than 1,000 dawns. The air shimmered with divine power, and the figure before them revealed his true form. It was Vamana, the dwarf incarnation of Vishnu, now transforming into Trivikrama, the cosmic giant whose steps could measure creation itself. Ministers fell to their knees, the priests whispered prayers, but Mahabali simply stood still, watching with the calmness of someone who had always known that life's greatest tests arrive disguised as ordinary moments. With his first step, the divine being covered the entire earth. With his second step, the heavens themselves. And then he turned to Bali, where the great cosmic voice echoed, "Shall I place my third step? There is nothing left that remains yours." The hall waited. Would Bali shrink? Would he argue? Would he fear? But the king who believed in giving more than he had slowly bowed his head. He touched the ground with his hands, closed his eyes, and said softly, "My lord, place your third step upon my head." The hall seemed to exhale as if time itself paused to honor his surrender. In that moment, Bali was not a king. He was not a warrior. He was simply a soul offering everything he had. Vishnu placed his foot gently on Mahabali's head, not as a punishment, but as a blessing. For a man who could give away the 3 worlds with a steady heart had no place in the ordinary world anymore. He was sent to Sutala, a realm of comfort and prosperity, where Vishnu himself promised to stand guard at his door. And Mahabali, he bowed with gratitude even then, for a man who gives without fear never loses anything at all.
It is said that once every year, Mahabali returns to visit his people on the day that many celebrate as Onam, not as a king hungry for power, but as a soul who still loves his land. And somewhere in that story, perhaps there is a quiet reminder for all of us that strength is not always in conquering. Sometimes it is in surrendering without bitterness. That greatness is not in what we rule, but in what we are willing to give. This was the story of Mahabali, a king who proved that humility can stand taller than the tallest cosmic step. Thank you for listening to Ancient Whispers, a space where forgotten tales breathe again. If this story brought you peace or left you with a quiet thought, do consider subscribing and joining us as we uncover more voices from the past. Until then, rest gently, and may the old stories walk beside you.